Hi, I'm Danger Dan Jers, the host and GM of the D&D Real Play podcast, D&D Dark. Join us on Wednesdays for an absurd, over-the-top comedy horror adventure, starring some of history's most infamous monsters.
I'm Ben Magnet. I play Mary Frankenstein, our barbarian.
I am Daniel Cruz. I am playing Imhotep the Mummy, our cleric.
I'm Jordan, and I play Larry Talbot, a lycanthropic warlock.
I am Grayson, playing Jack Griffin, the Invisible Man, the party's rogue.
I am Aaron. I play the Phantom of the Opera, our bard.
For more information, go to dndarkpodcast.com and listen to us anywhere you find podcasts.
You've read the books. You've learned the rules. You've played the games. And so is your mom. Just making sure you're paying attention. Now, it's time for something completely off base. From the same guys who haven't done anything exciting yet are the Paladins of Podcast, Rob and Potato. Listen in as they talk about all things related to pen and paper games, challenge rules, and go off script. This is the high fantasy commentary you didn't ask for, but your mom did. This is the Epic Table Audio Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Epic Table Games Audio Show. Your Paladins of Podcast have returned for another episode.
How's it going, Rob?
Not too bad, Potato. How are you?
I'm doing swell. Nothing to complain about yet.
That's good, because we're not the complaint department, are we?
No.
Not
to go to HR.
Yeah, you better. We don't have an HR department. And yeah, we're going to pick up directly from last week. In fact, I want to jump right into it. I don't know if we're going to spend the entire episode on this, but we didn't get a chance last week to talk about what level we prefer to end campaigns at.
That's right. Very strong topic in our communities.
It is. In fact, before we start too much, because this is absolutely hilarious, by the way, I want to mention somebody's answer. Okay?
All right.
Okay. So, their favorite level to end a game. You want to take a guess?
It is probably 20.
20 sounds pretty optic.
Yeah,
scheduling
I'm pretty sure that's
conflicts
what everyone's going to say.
Yeah.
Well, of course.
Scheduling conflicts get in the way. No, he said second.
Level 2?
Level 2. Level 2, and he jokes. He says, all right, you have crushed the giant rat in the cellar. You have saved the tavern owners from bandits. Go back to tending the fields.
If you play that story good enough, it'd be a cinematic, gladiator-esque movie. It'll feel like that.
It could be, for sure.
I've done all that I need to do. I'm going to retire back to my field.
Right. I'm only level 2. Now, if you think about it realistically...
Compared to a peasant, it's actually pretty strong.
It's absolutely incredible compared to a peasant. Compared to most people. Adventurers are like the cream of the crop kind of thing.
Right.
The creme de la creme. So, let's talk about it. Do we put a level cap on when you want to end a game?
Honestly, for me, no. I'm not going to be like, oh, you're at this level cap. I guess we're done.
A short episode, because I don't feel the same. I feel the same way, honestly.
the story and the player's character's progression is more paramount than the character level. Yeah,
I have to agree with that. And I think that... now, I've done this two ways. I've done milestone leveling, which is neat. You level up when you level up. And I've done experience-based level ups. And experience-based level ups are cool because, you just level up as you kill stuff.
Yeah, you could power level, and you can outshine the campaign depending on what's going on.
All right. Now, the funny thing is that I talked to you explicitly about that exact thing before this episode because, I never have said I'm an amazing DM. I've never once said that. I have just said other DMs are dumb. And it's because they can't seem to grasp the idea of creativity, thinking outside the box, or how to handle certain situations. Whereas I'm over here throwing level CR 18 monsters to a party of 4 7th level characters, and I mean they crushed it. So shut your mouths, a-holes.
Exactly.
And they gain 2 levels. So I power level my players, and it's not the fact that they're low level and crappy. It's just the fact that at higher levels they can do so much more cool shit.
And it makes them want to keep playing. Like, dude, my character has gotten so cool now.
Yes. Yes. In fact, a lot of people are like, I like to end between level 5 and 6. I mean, that's a low-level campaign to me. I like to start at level 5.
Right, I like to start at level 5.
Right.
That's how you get most characters to be, quote-unquote, online.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when they start booting up, really. And, I read something, and somebody says he likes to stop mechanic progression at level 6, but likes to continue feat progression and special ability progression because it keeps the characters mortal.
Interesting idea.
Absolutely. Which is neat, but I mean, if you think about it, let's say you're going up against, the pinnacle of every fantasy, the absolutely lame dragon. Okay.
Dracolich.
I mean, yeah, let's spice them up by making them an undead wizard. Anyway, it's sure, he's still relatably mortal, but he's going to get one-hit KO'd at this point, unless he's sacked up on armor, and then it makes it...
level 6 HP is still not going to count regardless of how many feats you have.
Right.
He's still going to hit you with that flame cone.
Right. And I mean, sure, you can get around it by taking toughness at every level that you get a feat. That's extra 3 hit points per level. So I like the idea. Maybe tweak it a little bit more. I'd say maybe a higher level, you can stop level progression, but keep feat progression. But no, I absolutely do not think that a game should stop or end at a certain level.
Yeah.
Take it into epic levels if you want.
Like if you're running an adventure path, as a DM, you probably should be throwing in other things and references, characters, what have you, that's outside of the book.
You can.
It can, either be just to help players engage more, something that was a passive joke, but the players picked up on it, so now it's a real set in stone thing, like a lot of great NPCs are. Homebrew items even. As a DM, you're probably going to be adding a few things into it. I don't see a lot of DMs being so cut and dry, only using what the Adventure Path says. I don't care. I mean, come on.
You have definitely played in mostly homebrew worlds.
You gotta. It's like bob and weaving. You gotta add some flavor into there.
You do not add flavor. Most people do not add flavor to those, man.
It's terrible.
It is.
But with the Adventure Path, what I feel would happen for me if I were to run a book, run an Adventure Path with someone, I would eventually add a character that's going to transform into the next big bad guy after they defeat the book's bad guy, and keep the story going until the character's story gets to an end.
Sure.
Because the player characters, they're not going to keep going and going and going and just picking up the next breadcrumb and do the next mission. There's going to be a point where they're like, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah.
And if you get to that point, everyone, I feel, will be a lot more successful feeling. They'll be like, man, this was great. I retired a character.
Yeah.
Who do you know? It's like, hey, I played this guy so long, these campaigns, I retired him.
So you remember when we started playing with my buddy Bender?
Yeah.
We've all played in certain games for so long that we have actually retired all of our characters.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
In fact, I mean, truthfully...
Usually the campaigns retire before the characters do.
Oh, more than often than not. And actually, it's cool to talk about it right now because we haven't talked about Thull for at least 2 episodes.
That's right. It's a Thull and Potato podcast.
Anyhow, we actually got to the end of the game, and what happened was Thull ended up dying, coming back, reincarnated. In fact, I caught people complaining about reincarnation too, for the spell. I'm like, oh my god, stop complaining. But when he was reincarnated, he actually came back as a pixie wizard And what's funny about that is that the reason that he died and came back as a pixie wizard was because he was cursed to, after death, return as the exact opposite of which he was.
Oh, wow.
And he was big physically and super strong.
And he was superstitious with magic, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, so he actually came back as a magic caster, super intelligent and super small.
Right.
And
that's funny.
It is. And sure, it psyched him out for a while, and it only took, I think, 4 or 5 more sessions before we ended up meeting the big bad guy, and Thull essentially became a time wizard and slowly unraveled time to undo the big bad guy's BS and fix the world, and the story ended.
Nice.
You know, boom. It was that good. It was not an instance where, like, our frickin' frat characters accidentally destroyed the Book of Reality and ended the game.
Yeah, that was great.
Oops. But yeah, most games do. They end up retiring way before characters do. And we talked about a little bit of that in the XP Valley episode. And I don't like to say, all right, at this level, our characters are going to end the game, because that to me just seems kind of bogus.
Yeah.
What I will do is, like, you know, my big bad evil guy will come in at about this level. I do that sometimes.
Right.
Or like, my big bad evil guy is this level, and they're either going to be overpowered or underpowered or right on par. And something else I also do is I know who my big bad evil guy is, and I'll build them the same way the players build their characters when it comes time for them to meet them.
Right.
So I do that quite frequently, actually. In fact, that's my favorite way to build big bad guys, is that everybody's out of the book until you guys meet a boss.
Yeah, pretty much.
And bosses are built to the same rules you are.
Exactly.
And I think that not only makes it fair, but it blows the CRs out of the water, because we know who cares about CRs. This guy doesn't. And then that way it also allows you guys to get really cool shit, extra levels, and you go up against a real challenge.
Yeah.
In fact, I think if you're challenging your players to the point where they're having a good time and they know that death is on the line. I just watched The Princess Bride. I know that is incredibly random right now.
I love that movie.
You never go up against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
Exactly.
Sorry, I can't.
Great.
Oh man, dude, I said it, and all of a sudden my mind was like, "You never go against a Sicilian when death is on the line." Sorry. Oh god, I did not want to random out that. Anyhow, yeah, I think when you say we're going to end the game at level 10, it's not a initiative for the players to say, well, let's power up to level 10 real quick. You know,
right.
if it's a good game, if it's a good story, they're going to get to level 10 and be like, oh man, this book is done. I really want my players to be in a world for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Now you're like, well, why do you power level your players? Well, because that XP Valley we talked about also exists at higher levels.
It really does.
And
it really does.
It exists at higher levels if you stick closer to the rule of thumb on CR of the party plus 1 or 2.
Right,
you know, you stick with that, and boom, you're generally golden. But to cap it out, I'm like, why? Stories don't cap out at certain power levels.
Exactly,
you
they don't.
There's a natural end to them, and when I think about story endings, I don't even think about my campaign's ending. Really, I just think about a big plot, and then as it gets closer to that big plot concluding, I consider small hooks to continue after that plot.
Right.
You know, in the world of an adventurer, in the world of a hero, why is it that once the big bad evil guy is taken care of, it goes back to peace? Like, it doesn't have to.
No, usually when the big bad evil guy dies, there's a power vacuum. So someone is going to come in and try to step into those shoes.
Right.
There's always going to be another guy trying to usurp and grow.
Right.
So there's always going to be a threat.
Absolutely. And
it's really depending if the players want to keep going. Like, well, we've finished the story of this adventure path. We still got our characters. We're still in this setting, we can pick up a new story. We can keep going. I already have some breadcrumbs laid out for you guys. That could be up to them, but
Yeah.
kind of other side of the coin, what's going on with a lot of shows nowadays, like your Naruto, your Simpsons, how they keep dragging on new seasons or new spin-off shows, new generation. They don't let it die.
The viewers can't see the blank look on my face.
Dude.
I don't watch either one of those shows.
I know you don't.
Okay.
It just comes in my mind as one of those shows that just don't stop. Like,
Yeah.
you just stop. You guys had it ending 5 times now, but you guys keep
Right.
re-picking it up and keep going.
Right.
If that happens in a Pathfinder or any tabletop RPG game, that might not be a bad thing, but it could be one of those things like, why are we still doing this? Let's change things up a bit.
Well, I think if the players are still enjoying the story, that's key.
If they're having fun,
Yep.
keep going.
If the DM is still able to be interested in telling the story,
Right.
and I actually think that the caveat in this scenario is that the dungeon master has a lot of responsibility to make the story interesting.
Yeah.
So the DM has to be interested in the story.
Yep.
And I recall a moment where you were DMing your game, and you had thrown in, and we started off with these hive slivers,
Yep.
which were kind of like mutagenic, modified creatures.
Yeah, like they're like parasitic, xenomorphic, abominations, like the Thing.
Yeah, and it was interesting and neat. And then all of a sudden, for like 3 or 4 sessions, which we played bi-weekly, so that meant 2 to 3 months almost.
Right.
Like, they didn't show up again, and we're like, what happened to those?
Yeah.
But realistically, it's very feasible that they would not be everywhere all the time.
That was my thing. I wanted it to be a slow build up and then pulled on the rug invasion.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like every single time we play, we're fighting another hive sliver.
Right, and that's just it. That's when we look at a lot of the creative storytelling from a lot of different varying levels of DMs. Is that some of them, it's progressing the story every game.
Yeah.
Other aspects are, this is the main story, but it's not really in the foreground 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest differences I see between you and I when we look at our DMing and storytelling methods is that yours will kind of just work, and then we don't work towards it for a while, and it comes back. So it's kind of like a revolving door.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's, you were not thinking about it, then our characters will go out and look for it, and we'll find it, and then we progress the story that way. We progress it on our own.
Yeah.
And whereas I like to do things where everything is kind of, that's taking place that isn't the main story, is still somehow connected to the main story. So right now we have a lot of issues with some undead things going on.
Yeah.
And you guys had come across a victim of a massacre in a town, and she was cursed and actually possessed, and it caused other issues that you guys had faced.
Right.
Now, that is not directly tied to the story, but it is an element that is adjacent to the story and can recycle itself back up later if I want it to.
Right. It's like a side quest
Yeah.
to the main quest.
Yes, essentially. Whereas it's an optional way to further story.
Yep. I think it's a good way, especially if you're doing a homebrew campaign, to have a handful of things kind of brought up, and whatever the party picks up, that's where you keep going.
Yeah.
But keep the other ones there, so whenever it arises, they can always drop and go to the other direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a good way.
And
keep them enthralled.
Yeah, absolutely. I also like how you mentioned that as a homebrew thing, because there are people who string along adventure paths and pre-done modules.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, well, from level 1 to 5, I got this module, and then 5 to 12, I got this module, 12 to 16,
Yeah.
16 to 17, 18 to 20. And if you're going to do that, which is great, there are multiple different modules that you can look at. So get a feel for them first, and then string them together in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
And there's no reason you should.
All the modules are separate.
Yeah,
you pick them up, and then it's up to you to kind of put them together if this is what you wanted to do with them.
Yeah, absolutely,
definitely.
And there's nothing saying that, you know, when you're in this town, the town functions this way, but you go 2 towns over, just a natural travel, and it's more like Ravenloft. And you go 2 or 3 more towns over, and it's closer to being in the Forgotten Realms. Or you have to go underground, and all of a sudden you're in the Underdark. There's nothing wrong with doing that.
No, not at all.
It's completely acceptable. It's actually doing it that way is 3 or 4 different worlds, 5 or 6 different stories, and multiple sessions spread over multiple levels already laid out. That has an end at level 20. That level 20 is a solid end for a lot of people because progression after 20 is not only difficult, but most players, DMs, and rules don't account for epic levels anymore.
True. That could be where you cap the level progression, but keep feat progression going.
You can.
That'd be interesting.
I think
disgusting, but interesting.
Sure. I think the interesting thing though about epic level is that, at 20th level, when you do everything, you're essentially doing everything again. And I've played epic level games where we have been mid-epic level, where, 25 to level 30. I've done overly epic, which is ridiculous, and the rules start to get really muddied, by the way.
Oh, wow. I can imagine.
Yeah, and it's like, well, why are you going to even roll up a level 40 character? Seriously? I'm like, well, the rules get really muddy, and we're just kind of exploring new options here.
It's like, I'm so strong, I'm just going to say what I'm going to do, and it's up to you to just say, okay, that's fine.
Well, the thing is that you find once you reach a certain level, like epic level 20 to 21, you find that things begin to scale almost relatively together. So there's no difference between low levels and low epic levels.
I see what you're saying.
And it's essentially, a lot of times it scales the same way. And we look at it like, it doesn't matter if you're still rolling a d20. You still have a 5% chance to roll any given number.
That's true.
So as long as you don't roll a 1, you still have a chance to hit.
Yeah.
And even if you have a plus 50 to hit,
gosh,
if this character has a 100 AC, you're still gonna miss on a 19.
Right.
And you're not going to critical.
It's basically the same as if you're level 2
right.
trying to hit an AC of 19.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just it.
That's where the progression becomes a valley again. It's like,
yes.
The numbers don't mean anything. I'm still coming out the same struggle to get the results I need.
Right. And that, I remember talking about it when earlier in one of our episodes I mentioned I was playing DBZ Kakarot. Because once you get to a certain point, it just seems like they're throwing out arbitrary numbers.
It's just it's thousands of numbers, but it's still at the same time.
Yeah.
Every fight, same amount of health bar, getting dwindled every hit.
Yeah.
The numbers don't mean crap. It's kind of like Borderlands.
Yeah.
When you get to a high enough level in Borderlands, it's like, oh, I'm doing thousands of damage. It's so cool, but it's the same gameplay. It's not like it's changed.
Right. And
that's why I don't like the whole scaling with you dynamic.
Right. It's ridiculous especially in video games. But ending a game should have sort of this natural feel to it.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about the idea of retiring a character. I think we started off a game which again was with Bender's Table, and the game was, we started off at level 5, I think. It was a lower level game when we started.
Yeah.
But we had already become legendary heroes. And we were reborn into the world because a new evil was threatening the material plane.
Right. It was like a time jump thing. Was that what it was? Like Back to the Future?
Nope.
No,
not a time jump. Our characters retired from their hero adventuring ways, and then we kind of like froze in time.
That's okay.
And then after hundreds of years or millennia or whatever,
gotcha. That's where my mind got messed up.
Yeah, a new evil appeared, and you think, well, geez, you are already heroic legends at one point. Why are you level 5 now? Like, well, our background story had to conclude on what we did to retire, why we retired, and what brought us out of retirement. So there was story material we could work off of.
Exactly.
And you could look at level 5 being, well, we're level 5 characters, and our levels have dwindled under inactivity.
Yeah, entropy.
Yep. Or, we were incredible adventurers that had retired, and that happened prior to level 5.
Right.
It's not really a to-do, because you look at things, if you look at scaling, I mean,
it doesn't really matter.
It becomes irrelevant anyway.
Exactly.
So I think picking a level to end a game at is a ridiculous way to say...
arbitrary.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. In fact,
agree.
I think another way to equate it is when you look at horror movies, for example. Most of them are 90 minutes on the dot.
Yeah.
90
Isn't that weird?
minutes. Yeah, and I don't know how much you know about film, but they consider 1 page of script 1 minute of a film. So a 90-minute film, about 90 pages. And they almost formulaically cram a horror movie into 90 minutes. So badly that I want to say they look at it like, we're going to make a horror movie, it's 90 minutes. Or, we have 90 minutes, what are we going to do? Horror. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie The Nun?
Yes.
I felt a lot of things were crammed and rushed and forced. I'm like, logically, in a real life setting, if that was me, no way I'll be still there after the first night. There's no way.
Right.
You're not making much sense here, movie.
Speaking of movies, I'm a big fan of movie trivia.
Oh, yeah.
And did you see the movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, Zodiac, based off of Zodiac Killers?
Oh, I've seen it when I was younger. I haven't seen it since. I don't remember much about it.
The movie's a slow burn.
I heard it was one of those like thinker kind of movies. Like you had to really think about it.
You're following along a character in the movie who's becoming very obsessed about what's going on, and it follows the span of years, essentially, and knowing that in real life they never had an actual suspect for years, and I think just recently they said that they believe it was this guy who passed away in 2018, etc. So there was people of interest, but it was always a cold case. Obviously no resolution in the movie because of that. Well, that's irrelevant. The interesting part is I was reading the trivia, and it said that because of the length of the script, they were worried the movie was not going to fit in the certain amount of time that they wanted it. So they all spoke faster.
No way.
They did. And that was at the request of director. And everybody's like, God, how is this? How is this even relating here, Rob? And the fact is if you say my game is going to end at level 15, what happens when the players try to level up as fast as possible?
Before you even get to the appropriate moment in the story, exactly. Right. It's the equivalent of you talking faster.
Right.
That's wild.
Right. I mean, that's why I don't like the idea of finding a cap or a level cap.
The level cap puts a window, a time frame that doesn't need to be there.
Right.
Honestly.
Right. And I think it's great for casual slow players who just want to go out and meander. But for the people who murder hobo, for a lack of better words, I mean, come on. You know they're going to hit that cap way faster.
Oh, yeah. Especially doing XP leveling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Milestone leveling, it's you who decides when they level up. And it still doesn't matter. Because what matters is the story. And what matters more than the story is the player's enjoyment.
Right.
Bottom line.
Right. And like you mentioned, if you're milestone leveling, the fact is that the cap isn't really there.
There's no cap, really.
Like you said in your head, we're going to end at level 5, we're going to milestone level. Then you're still you're just story leveling.
That's what it is. It's story leveling.
Yeah. And it's not any way to really say I'm going to end the game at this level. It's, I want them to be about this powerful when they face the big bad guy. And it's not bad, but it's not my style. So I do not level cap and end games at specific levels. So, yeah. We have a little bit of time left, and something that somebody brought up once that I caught in my email, and it was brief, and they were asking about podcasts that are tabletop RPG related without being actual play.
Right, because a lot of podcasts nowadays are actual play.
Yeah, and I know that you and I have been looking for some as well. Yeah. And sometimes we find good ones, sometimes we find bad ones, and honestly, we are one.
Yeah, it's crazy. We are one of those.
Yeah,
that's us.
That's us. The Epic Table Games audio show is not an actual live play podcast. We just bullshit about tabletop games, primarily Pathfinder, with throwing some shade at D&D. Then we talked out about a few other systems too.
Playful shade.
Yeah. We make fun of bad DMs and other DMs and good DMs, and never say that we're great. But I'd actually like to kind of call out, because knowing some of these things are hard to find. I came across one a few weeks ago, and it was interesting how they had it set up. I'm trying to bring it up here again. Of course, my my system doesn't want to load everything at one time. I've listened to things like D&D Court.
D&D Court, that's an amazing title.
Yeah, and what they do there, and what I really like, is that they actually take people who have submitted questions and rules, and they make passing judgments on these questions.
The ruse lawyers.
Essentially.
That's pretty cool,
and,
actually.
They will hand out judgments and stuff, which is fun. It's cool. I listened to a few other episodes just trying to hunt down some things. Dungeons and Daddies is one that I've heard about.
Yep, I've heard about them. Dungeons and Daddies.
I haven't listened to that. Adventuring Academy is another Dimensions 20, one that I haven't heard.
Dimensions 20 is pretty decent.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Dimensions 20 is the actual play, isn't it?
I don't remember. I know that they have a few different things like Adventuring Academy and whatnot. So it's very similar to us, where we're going to have a few multiple different shows. But yeah, it's actually really difficult to find things that are not just bullshitting about TTRPGs.
There's not many podcasts that talks about games, rule sets, and what have you. It's usually, if it's related to tabletop RPG, it's them playing that TTRPG.
Yeah. So
it makes sense, and I'm glad that we're one of those people that are filling in that gap.
It is. And now it's funny, because people have talked to us a little bit about our podcast, and one of the best things we can tell them to do is listen. Yeah. But when they're like, hey, what do you guys talk about? And I'm like, well, we'd like to talk about everything TTRPG, but the fact is that we kind of stick to what we know and what we play regularly. So we look at a lot of Pathfinder things, a lot of D&D things. We recount some histories and differences between the versions. And I know I've talked to you off mic about wanting to branch out a little farther into additional rule sets and finding things that are cool and interesting.
Yeah.
And you've talked about kind of spotlighting monsters, NPCs, and whatnot from all different areas.
I think that'd be really cool.
Absolutely. I think we're going to start trying that. But one thing that I think that we can look at right now is kind of the idea of cool characters that we have seen in other areas that would be kind of fun to bring into tabletop RPGs.
Kind of like from a video game or a movie, bring them into a game, like a mock build.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of times people, they look at their favorite media. I'll use, what's the guy's name from One Punch Man?
Saitama.
I have watched 1 or 2 episodes.
It's a great show. It's ridiculous.
of One Punch Man, and I'm like, the build for One Punch Man nearly impossible because it's One Punch. But the character trope of lone hero, is there, but disappointed lone hero. That he never has somebody he can just knock out in one punch.
Right. He's like, I'm depressed because there's no challenge. There's no point.
Right. And I think...
And no one knows me. No one thinks I'm great.
I think that trope is fantastic. And it's kind of a roundabout way that I wanted to talk about, special character builds, but the tropes that they bring in with them.
Right.
Because everybody, since the beginning of time, has wanted to play the lone hero because the lone hero is usually the badass guy.
It usually is. That's the gimmick.
Yeah, and honestly, your tabletop RPGs are a cooperative storytelling game.
Yeah.
You usually have to have a party of X amount of people. You don't have to, but they're usually played that way. And everybody wants to play the lone hero. I don't work with anybody. Because, honestly, any first-person story, or a story that focuses on one character, looks at that guy, and he's always the lone hero.
Yeah, it's usually how it is.
Yeah, and I like it. I've played that type of character before, but I have also played the highly anticipated team player.
Right.
I've also played the
quarterback.
Yeah. The reluctant hero.
Yeah.
Which is like your Frodo Baggins and Bilbo Baggins character.
Yep. How did I get dragged into this? But it's my duty.
Yep. In fact, truthfully, I played that character for one episode of an actual play podcast that we were trying out, and people hated the character. Like, why is he even in the adventure if he doesn't want to go? Well, honestly, why are you bitching about it if your favorite character on your profile is Bilbo Baggins, asshole?
Right.
Don't tell me about how awesome this character is. He didn't want to go on that adventure. He just went. That's what he had to do.
Exactly.
So when looking at building characters that come from other media, do you focus on their character quirks, their tropes, their abilities? What do you look at? I know that we've been talking about building a character who references Spawn.
That's true.
From Todd McFarlane's Image Comics.
It's mainly when I think of a mock build of these characters from other sources of media. I guess the best way to blanket term that. I always think of what I'll be able to do and what I can reflavor. So it's more about the mechanics I can pull off, and then the gimmicks, the tropes, and the roleplay aspects gets added in later.
Okay.
Like right now, I'm actually working on making Sub-Zero and Scorpion for Mortal Kombat.
Nice.
That's actually going pretty nicely.
Nice. Nice. And so I'll use those two characters. Mechanically, you got to figure out the abilities that define the characters.
Yes, I feel that comes first in helping you emulate the character.
Yeah,
and then you can put your feet in the shoes and really get into it.
Yeah. Now I know that I've built a character off of Harry Dresden, and the way I did that was anybody who's familiar with that series knows that he mentions multiple times throughout the entire series that he's really good at starting fires. Really good. So I was like, all right, I'll focus on fire because he's really good at that. And Harry Dresden is not the lone hero type. He is I gotta keep everybody safe, I gotta go all out, and how the hell did I get into this? I'm always tired, this sucks. So my character wasn't going off those negative aspects, it was going off the mechanics that could feel like his magical abilities.
Right, like, using my spell slots, I'm tired.
Yeah. And stylizing his characteristics into story. So, building these characters or using that reference image or the reference starting point of another existing character really allows for me to build, I don't want to say a reference character as well, but it builds like a companion character, or it builds an adjacent character to your idea.
Right.
And keeping the flavor doesn't necessarily mean keeping the lone hero trope. It's just when people play adventurers and they base it off of other characters or ideas, they really have nothing to go on other than the lone hero.
Pretty much. That's like baseline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, John Wayne movies.
Yeah.
Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
Yoda. In fact, there was a Japanese manga called Lone Wolf and Cub.
Ooh.
I mean,
sounds interesting.
It wasn't bad. The fact is that anytime you have a singular character, he's the lone wolf. In fact, even look at the Matrix series. Neo is still a lone wolf, and he was essentially forced into a party. He doesn't believe his role in the party.
Yeah.
He ends up saving the day, but it's not like he relied on anybody else. They were all just backup characters.
Dude, I'm gonna make Neo now. My next character in Pathfinder is gonna be Neo.
Great,
dude. He's gonna be a psionic.
So what's really cool?
That's a third-party class, isn't it?
Yeah. So what's really cool about that is psionic is third party in Pathfinder, and actually, what's really funny is in a game that I ran, because we don't run with a lot of third-party stuff, and I'll sneak third-party stuff in there when I need to give my players or my party a twist.
I feel it's the DM's right to add third party, but it's not the player's right to add third party.
Right. And so, I know that my players in this particular instance will intimidate the crap out of everything.
Who's that?
Because they have such ridiculously high intimidate checks. They always got to find somebody who's just a little bit more badass than they are. Now, to be fair, they were level 6 at the time. So when you walk into a bouncer, he's going to be experienced. When the head bouncer is experienced and the other guys get intimidated, it's not a big deal. But I made him a scion. And the cool thing is, and this is really neat, I took this from D&D 3.5 when they introduced psionics, is that you can use psionics as one of two different ways. You can say psionics is different to magic, and therefore different is different. So dispel magic would not work on psionics. You would need dispel psionics.
Gotcha.
In order to work that well, there would have to be enough of a psionic presence in the party to really justify...
have that kind of knowledge.
Right.
Yeah.
The other aspect, the other way to do it was psionics was essentially a different school of magic. So I generally, when they call that, is same but different. So it's the same as magic, but it's a different school.
Right.
And I usually rule with psionics being same but different.
That's how I would rule as well, I think.
That way, they can still dispel magic. They have a way around it, but it's not something they're familiar with. They're not something that they have immediate access to.
Right.
So one of them went up against a soul knife and just got punched with nothing but a sharp pain to the head and a huge headache because he didn't know what it was. Flash of green, boom, he was down. And I liked it. It was entertaining. Not to mention, this goes back to the guys that I've been having a gripe with lately, who don't know how to handle overpowered party members.
Oh yeah, come on.
I mean, seriously, there's no such thing as an overpowered party member.
No, what it is, it's a proud party member. That's what you should be. You should be proud of that party member.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you need to hand him his ass, you just do so.
Just do it.
Like, it's
add 8 to everything. That's what I do.
You don't have to add 8 to everything. But honestly, in this case, you totally could add 8 to everything. I don't always stat block up some of my bad guys, especially my inconsequential ones. You know, if you're going to take him out, you're going to take him out. And if he's going to take you out, he's going to take you out.
Right.
You know, I don't do it all the time, and there's got to be story elements there that keep things flowing and interesting. So
completely agree with you.
Yeah, I think as a DM, it's your responsibility to keep the story moving in certain aspects and in certain ways. And there's nothing wrong with creating a character that's going to win just if it's inconsequential.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. Go ahead. And if they have a really high roll, all right, fine, you get it. I'm disappointed, but whatever.
Next time.
Right. And I'll grumble. I'll be like, damn it, I didn't want you guys to go down this route. You won. You made it. And they're like, haha, I beat the DM.
Exactly. Ha ha ha.
You know, hey, take the win, guys. It's cool. I think if I won all the time, it'd be useless. And if I gave them everything, come on, they wouldn't have fun.
You gotta have a good give and take. That's the whole point of the bob and weave, man.
Absolutely.
If it's all one way, all the other way, it's not gonna be fun after a minute.
No, not at all. So, all right, guys, check it out. We're getting pretty close to the full-on Christmas season. So we have a few things that you can pick up from our web store at epictablegames.com. And always check us out on Facebook. We have our public group and our public page, Epic Table Games. Otherwise, we'll see you next week.
Jingle bells, y'all.
It's not too good.
Epic Table Games! Stress, nights, roll, nights, fantastical nights, fairy tales, dragon tales, stress, nights, roll, nights, fantastical nights. Make way for the paladins, make way for the paladins. Epic Table Games! Make way for the paladins, make way for the paladins. Epic Table Games! Thank you for listening to the Epic Table audio show with the paladins of the podcast, Rob and Potato. Until next time, stay in touch on Facebook at Epic Table Games and online at epictablegames.com. Yeah.